Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from Alex Merced Coder, and in this video what I'm going to do is show you how to implement authentication in Express for an API using JWT tokens, but this time the delivery mechanism, because in the previous videos and builds I've done, what I've done is we deliver the cookie as a response in the response body to your login request. The front end would then store it in like local storage, session storage, and then deliver that JWT token in an authorization header. What I'm going to do in this situation is, instead of delivering the token in the body of the request, which means the front end is then responsible for giving it back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliver it via an HTTP cookie. And why would you prefer like one over the other? Now, the thing about a cookie is great if I'm only going to be in touch with this server. So what happens is that we're going to put in an HTTP only cookie, which means the front end will not have access to the data. So we'll deliver the token when the user logs in, but again, that cookie will only be sent when it's requested to the same server. So even though the JWT token is now in the user's computer and it's in a safe place and can be tampered with for the most part, if you have like a multi-microservice type architecture, we have many different APIs that all could use the same login credentials, then you may prefer the sort of like, hey, let me give you the JWT token in over here, so that way you can actually use it to send it to other microservices that are looking for that JWT token. So keep in mind, just gotta think about sort of what the transmission mechanism is. You can even, essentially make it a multi-step process where you have two tokens, one token that is basically given to a server to establish a cookie with that particular microservice, as long as you have the original JWT token to authorize yourself. There's also different ways to set this up. If you can imagine it, you can make it, but let's just build it. The beauty of this is if you're just building like an API with a front end, and you're not, basically that authorization doesn't extend beyond that one web service. So in that case, you want to build a mobile app, a web app, a desktop app, but it's just one backend, then this is a much easier way to go, and it's more secure. So why not? So let's talk about it. Okay, so I'm going to do this in Express, but the same principle would, overlap to any other backend framework. And then if you're talking about like more like batteries included frameworks, they probably already have this kind of thing built in fairly easily. But let's do it. Let's just set up a Express project. Okay, and let's see here, npm install. Actually, first let's create the project. So let's touch server.js and then do it npm install express. I'm gonna want bcrypt.js for encrypting passwords. bcrypt.js is just a pre-compiled version of bcrypt. So if you install bcrypt, it compiles it to source at that time, in which situation you may end up with, like, you might see these errors like node, JIP errors. Just generally that just means there's some sort of compiler issue. One way to avoid those is to download a pre-compiled version of the same library when available. In this case, bcrypt does have one. So express bcrypt.js. What else do I want? I want JSON web token. I am going to want cookie parser, so we can parse cookies. And I am going to want I think that's a good so I might as well just download morgan.env, and I think there we're good. And course, of course. Okay, so install all those things. Cool. Well, let's just double check that they all got installed. Goody. Although, where's the rest of my package.json? I'm assuming I never did the npm init. So npm init-y. I thought I did that, but there we go. Okay, good. And the dependencies are in there. Cool. That must be a new thing in Node, because usually if I installed something before initializing the package.json, it just wouldn't create one. This time it did. So I'm assuming that that's a recent change. That's cool. I like that. That's a good thing to do. Okay, so we installed some libraries, and now we can just begin building the thing out. So here I'm going to set up all, bring in our dependencies. And again, you can do this across multiple files. This doesn't have to be all in one file. I'm going to do it all in one file just to kind of minimize the confusion of like, hey, this file imports that and this file exports this. But again, if you're familiar with how Node imports and exports things, you can break this up any way you like. Okay, so let's load dependencies. So import all our libraries. So const express equals require express. Const bcrypt equals require bcrypt.js. And actually I'm going to want that .env, so I'm going to I always like to put that first. Require .env .config. Cool. And the cool thing you can do is you can put like a configuration file in here, like this, and you can be like, I think you can put file. Do you remember what other keys that you can put in here? As a path? Yeah, path. Okay, and then I can just sit there and just say like where the path to my .env file is. So I could sit there and just say like ./.superenv, whatever file I want. Okay, and we'll just do a quick example of that, just for those who've ever used .env before and want to kind of have some fun with it, or like want to call their env file something other than .env. So let's see here. If I do .superenv and I say cheese equals Gouda. Okay, and for now, well, I'm just going to just try this out. Console.log process.env, because again, all your environmental variables are always going to be in this object, process.env in JavaScript, process.env cheese, and again, was that lowercase or uppercase? Lowercase. So let me run the file, node server.js, and see, it read the file. Do you have to do it that way? No. The easiest way to do it would just be to like not put anything in there, and then it'll just look for a .env file. But some people like to have like different env files for like different environments or whatever. I'll just leave it. Okay. Okay, so console.log. Get rid of that. Let's keep just loading up our different dependencies. Const Morgan equals require Morgan. Okay, this is going to bug me, so I am just going to get rid of this. And then rename this to .env, as it should. There we go. Const Morgan, const, I'm going to say CP for cookie parser. I just don't feel like typing out cookie parser. Okay, const, JWT for require JSON web token, and cores for cores, const cores equals require cores. Okay, cool. So now we're going to create our application object. Const app equals express. There's our application object, so we can register all our routes. Then we're going to have our section where we'll register our middleware. And here, I always going to want to have my cores middleware first. So that's just going to make sure that my front end, that theoretically would be hosted on a different domain name or a different subdomain, can make requests. Then I'm going to want my logger, so I can log all requests. App.use Morgan, and now I'm going to use the tiny preset. Then app.use express.json for parsing JSON in request bodies. App.use, I think it's just like CP. Let me think about that. Is that what I want to pass? No. Okay, and then you can pass a string, but it's optional, so that should be good there. And that'll parse any cookies that are inside the request body, or actually in the request headers. app dot, I think that hits up all the middleware I need for the moment. Okay, then I'm going to hit the routes. And then we're going to have our server listener. Okay, so app.listen 4000 listening on port 4000. And now that I come to think about it, I should probably set up Mongo, because we do need to save like the user somewhere. Actually, well, we could technically use an array, but that's not going to quite give you the same feel for how to do this. So let me install Mongoose. So npm install Mongoose. Okay, so I'm going to want a variable for the Mongo URI. So we're going to need a secret variable, which is just going to be Gouda for now. And I'm going to need a Mongo URI variable to connect to our database. And I'll just connect to my local database. So / localhost 27017 / auth practice. Nah, I don't care if I spell it right. Doesn't really matter. Okay, cool. So I got those variables available. So now that I got Mongoose installed, I need to connect to the database. So let me set that up. Database connection. Const mongoose equals require mongoose. Okay, database connection. Okay, so we're going to do mongoose.connect, and it's process.env.mongo URI, because that's going to be from our environmental variables. Then we'll just pass the obligatory use unified topology is true, and use new URL parser true. Okay. And then I'm just out of laziness, I will pass the third argument. I won't bother with the event listeners, and this will just say console.log Monk connected to Mongo. Okay, I hit save. Let that just kind of clean that up a little bit. There we go. So there's my Mongoose connection, and then we need to create a model for users. We need to have a user model. Okay, so let's create a user model, because we need to be able to save users to the database. So in that case, we need to first create the user schema. Const user schema equals new mongoose.schema, and a user. It's going to have a username, which is a string, and a password, which is a string. Cool. And then we need to make the model. So const user equals mongoose.model, and that's going to be user schema. Okay, so that's created. Sorry for all the coughing. Now routes. So we got everything we need all set up. So again, just to kind of recap, we brought in our dependencies. Okay, we created our Express application object. We connected to our database. We have our user model for interacting with our user collection in the database. Our middleware for each request. Soon we'll have our routes, and then we have our listener. So it'll listen on port 4000. Great. First thing you generally want is some sort of sign up route. So that's going to be first. So app.post. We'll say it's going to be /signup. And then we're going to want to make this an async function, rec res. Okay, so the first thing we want to do when you sign up, theoretically, you're going to post a JSON body with a username and a password. First thing I want to do is I want to hash that password, which means I want to jumble it up because I don't want to save the raw password in the database, because then if someone hacks into my database, they can get everyone's passwords. So generally what you want to do is you want to encrypt the password. That's why you use bcrypt. It encrypts it. Cool. So we're going to say rec.body.password equals bcrypt.hash. Okay, we want to use await because there's hash and hash sync. If you use hash, it's asynchronous, so you need to use await. But if you use hash sync, then it's synchronous and you have to wait for it to finish before it does anything else. Just depends on your preference. Bcrypt hash, and then I gotta pass in a string, which will be rec.body.password, and then we have to pass in a salt, so we'll just do bcrypt.generate salt, and then generate salt. We generally need to put in a number. We'll say 10. That's generally good enough. And essentially just means like how much is it going to jumble it up. So in that case, there we go. We've salted the password, and that's all set to go. And now we can create the new user. Requirement. And then what I should do is I should actually modify this, that the username should be unique. Okay, so I'm going to change this, say type equals string, required is true, so you have to have a username, and unique is true, meaning it has to be unique. Okay, so just changing my Mongoose schema, so that's a Mongoose thing. But if you were using an SQL database, you know, there's ways to set up your schema there as well. Okay, but now what we'll do is we'll say const user equals user, the model, dot create, and then we pass in rec.body. Okay, and then we just return, and then we should put use an await because that's a synchronous action. Await, because anything with Mongoose on the model, like interactions with the database, are generally asynchronous. So now next, I just want to return. Actually, I don't want to return anything. I want to res.json the user. Okay, and then that's done. Okay, so let's test that out. So let me run the server. Boop. npm install node server.js. Let's see, did we connect to Mongo? I haven't connected to Mongo yet. I don't see the message. So that's not good. Give it a second. Did I mess up the URL? Mongo URI, MongoDB, localhost 27017. Again, this part doesn't matter. Oh, there we go. Finally got connected to Mongo. It took a long time, but it did it. It got connected. Okay. Cool. How did it get connected to Mongo now that I think about it? Because I don't think my Mongo server is running. Oh well, I guess it is running now. Interesting. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go to Thunder Client. So I'll click over here. This is a VS Code extension, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to sign up, and I'm gonna go include the body, and that needs the username and password. So we'll say username Alex, password cheese. Oh, that's going to be to localhost 4000 because that's where we have our server running. Oh, and we got an error. So let's take a look. Legal arguments string object to. Okay. It didn't like that. Oh, I think I'm supposed to put an await here. That's the issue. because again, there's like gensalt and there's gensalt sync, so that's asynchronous, so I need to await it. Let's try that again. Back to Thunder client, and it still hasn't connected to Mongo. Okay, let me just turn this off and like make sure I have my Mongo database on. Okay, good. Now the Mongo server is definitely on. And say that got connected to Mongo a lot quicker. Good. Now let's hit send. And it created the user. And see, that's like the result of a hashed password. So again, if I hacked into this password, I would not be able to know what your password is. I wouldn't know that in this case the password was what was it? Cheese. Okay, so that's the beauty of that. But now we need to be able to log in. Okay, so I need app.post /login async recres okay, recres, and what we want to do is say we want to first check to see if the user exists. So that's always first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we're going to see if we can find that user. So I'm going to say const user equals user.find. Find me the user whose username matches. And actually, I want to use find one. That's always my mistake. I always forget to change that to find one. The username who matches rec.body, that username. Okay, so find me that user. And then we're going to say, hey, if user, okay, then one thing happens, else another thing happens. Then the else is going to be res.status of 400 because there's an error. Okay, .json. I'm going to pass a little object saying error. No user not found. Okay, then once we have the user, if the user does exist, we need to check the password. Okay, so then basically what happens is we have to do const result equals, and again this needs an await. These are all asynchronous actions. Okay, result await bcrypt dot compare. And first thing is the string, which will be rec.body.password. That's what the user put into the form, the login form, and hash will be the hashed version that's in our database. So that's going to be user.password. And that's going to give me a result, either true or false. It succeeded. And so then we're going to say if result, so A, did the password just match? If true, one thing will happen, otherwise, else, we're going to pass in a different error. So this way we'll say password does not match. So this, again, it's always important to make sure that the user can kind of figure out what they're doing wrong, so that way they can troubleshoot. And now if the passwords match and the user exists, that means you're good to be logged in. So we need to create a user token, okay? So what I'm going to do is say const payload. This is going to be the data that I want to store in the token, which I really just want to give you your username. That's really all I want to put away. Okay, so username equals user.username. Okay, and then if later on I decide I want to store anything else, I can, but for now that's all I need. So then we're going to say const token equals await JWT dot sign. Okay. Okay, so that's synchronously send a given payload. Okay, it's synchronous, so that means I don't need to do an await. So JWT.sign, and then what I want to do is give it the payload. So there's the payload. I want to give it the then secret, so that's going to be process.env.secret. Let me just make sure I called it secret. Yep, it's called secret. Okay, so that'll sign the token. And then what I want to do is I want to do res.cookie. Okay, and then we have to give the cookie a name. Okay, so we're going to call the cookie token. The value will be the token. Okay. And I think I might need to stringify that, but we'll wait for a second. And then we do res or dot JSON message login successful. Okay. So there's the login piece. And theoretically, this should create a cookie with a token. Okay, and then I think I also want to like do like, this is where I pass the options, right? Like I want to pass in like httpOnly true. And okay, that's all, otherwise all good. Now httpOnly means that like the front end code can't access the cookie. So this makes sure that people can't like do cross-site scripting to touch your cookie and all that good stuff. So let me restart the server. Let's try to log in. Okay, so let's just change this to login. Still a post request, same data. And the login was successful. The cookie, yep, and there's the cookie. Okay, so I have this cookie now. Yay. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if like Thunder client is going to retain that cookie. Am I able to body headers? Oh, we'll find out in a second. But theoretically, what would happen is then you would then have that. Oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to go over here. Then we would create some custom middleware to check, hey, does this cookie exist? So I would just create a section somewhere. So I'll just do it before our middleware. We will refer to this as our auth middleware. And the idea here is we're creating a function that we can attach to certain routes and say, hey, if the cookie's there, do this. If the cookie's not there, then kick them to like a different page or give them a different response. Okay, so we can just say const auth equals rec res next, because it's middleware, so we gotta have that signature. Rec res next, and the question is going to be, well, we always want to end with next, so we'll just put that down there for now. Okay, if rec.cookie response.cookie, no. Well, let's just do this. Console log, see if the cookie's there. Okay, and for now we're just going to put that off right here with all our other, I mean that middleware with all our other middleware, so like that. Okay, cool. So that registers that. Now let me restart the server. Let's just see if we're getting the cookie. I don't know, again, I don't know if Thunder client retains the cookie. So now if I log in again, and then, yeah, no, and then if I hit send again, you know, I don't think it retains a cookie. So it'd be kind of hard to test from there. Okay, so in that case, here's what I got to do. I'm going to create a index.html file in here. And create some boilerplate. Emmett, where art thou? Why won't you come help me? Okay. I just want normal HTML. There we go. Haha, that's better. Okay. So now what I want to do is create a script tag. And we'll just do a post request to log in here. So we'll just say const I'll just say fetch localhost http slash localhost 4000 slash login method post headers headers content type it's gonna be application JSON because we're making a request with some JSON data. So let's actually send that JSON data. So okay, body equals JSON dot stringify. Again, username Alex, password cheese. Okay, yep, this needs parentheses. There we go. Then dot then. Let's just make another route. App dot get slash test rec res dot json test. Okay. So dot then. So basically when that's done, the logging in thing, what I want to do is just make another request and just test that out. So I'll just do another fetch. To localhost slash test. That's what I'd like to do. So let's save that. Let me restart the server. And then let me open up this in live server. So open, which I don't see as an option right now. So what I want to do is I'm going to open the folder and then open this up with Google Chrome. Let's open up DevTools. Actually, I don't really care about that, but still no undefined. So see, made a post request, but still no cookie there. So let's just see if we received the cookie. So let's go to the network here. Let me refresh. Okay, so here we got here's a login. The login was successful. And see, there's the cookie. We're receiving the cookie. And then if I go to test, here I don't see the cookie. Now usually we can see the cookie here in application. So let me just see here, cookie file. I think this is because this is not really like a URL. Okay, that's another way I can do this. Okay, I'm gonna make a folder called public, and then over here in server.js, I'm gonna add another piece of middleware called app.use express.static, and we're gonna serve that static public folder as static. So I'm gonna move this index.html in there and see if this helps. So now if I go to localhost 4000, I get this page. Let's take a look at the deal here. And then I go back over here to application. Let's take a look at the cookies. And there's the cookie. Good. So then, does that mean I got the cookie in the last request? No. Did it send it at least? Let's take a look. Sources, network, test. Okay, yeah, it sent the cookies. This is. Do we not see the cookie parser? And the cookie parser is there. Oh, but the auth middleware happens before the cookie is parsed. That's why. Oh, Control Z. Oh no. Public. So this I want happens after the cookie is parsed because I need the cookie to be parsed before I can actually access it. So let's try that again. Okay, now let's see here. Still, let's see here. Auth rec.cookie. So then the question becomes, maybe I'm just not thinking about where the cookie would be put. So let's see here. Cookie parser. Like, where does the cookie get stored? Okay, rec.cookies. That's what I'm looking for. Rec.cookies. So let's set that back up. Over here. Console. Well, actually, don't need to do that there, but that's fine. If I go back over here, and yes, okay, so the cookie is arriving. So I can be like, okay, there's the token. So we're going to say if rec.cookies.token, and if the token's not there, then we'll just do like res.status 400.json error not authorized. Okay, now if that is true, okay, then what would happen is we would just say rec.token. Actually, we'll just say rec.username equals, or actually we'll just say rec.payload equals JWT.decode, and then we're going to pass in the token string rec.cookies.token, and we pass in the secret key, which is process.env.secret, and that should end up getting the payload to the request object, and we move on. So then we'll just say rec.payload. See if that works. So refresh that. And let's take a look at the test results. Did I get? And yeah, see, I get the token. I get the payload. I get the username, and then I can use the username to like add things to the database. So like if I want to track like, hey, this thing belongs to this user, I could add like a username property to any other models and track the username. But I don't have to worry about the front end keeping track of like whether the token's back and forth. That's the beauty of using a cookie. It'll automatically get sent on all the subsequent requests. So the front end just builds out the front end and makes the requests when they need to make the request based on your endpoints, and they don't have to worry about making sure they have to put in an authorization header or where do I store a token. All that's taken care of by the cookie, which makes it such a nice way of handling that. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.